It was one of those evenings when the sky was painted in shades of fading orange and soft pink. The city buzzed with its usual chaos: honking cars, flickering lights, and strangers brushing past each other with no intention of remembering. Arham wasn't supposed to be there that day. He had missed his meeting, spilled coffee on his shirt, and now stood outside a bookstore waiting for the rain to stop. Everything fell off until she appeared. A girl, holding a small paper bag close to her chest, ran under the store's awning. Her hair was wet from the drizzle, her cheeks slightly pink. She smiled shyly when their eyes met. "Crazy weather, isn't it?" she said, brushing a drop of rain off her forehead. Arham chuckled softly. "Depends. Maybe it's the weather's way of introducing people." She laughed, the kind of laugh that stays in your head long after it fades. They exchanged glances, and for the first time in months, Arham felt something stir within him, something he couldn't name yet. Her name was Zara, and she worked at a nearby art gallery. She had stopped by the bookstore to pick up an old poetry collection. When she spoke about her love for words and art, her eyes sparkled like they carried entire universes inside them. Arham listened, not because he wanted to be polite, but because every word she spoke felt like music. The bookstore lights dimmed slightly as the rain thickened, and she turned to the window. "I've always loved the rain," she said softly. "It feels like the sky is washing away everything painful." He smiled, replying almost instinctively, "Then maybe that's why we met. Both of us needed a little cleansing." For the next hour, time didn't exist. They talked about favorite books, random memories, and quiet dreams. When the rain stopped, Zara said she had to leave, but her voice carried hesitation, like she didn't really want to. Arham quickly tore a small piece of paper from his notebook and scribbled something. "My number," he said, handing it to her, "in case you ever want to talk about poetry again, or just talk." She smiled, took the paper, and said, "Maybe I will." And just like that, she walked away, leaving behind a trace of her perfume and an ache Arham didn't know he'd feel. As he watched her disappear into the crowd, he whispered to himself, "Maybe the rain really does bring blessings." That night, he couldn't stop replaying her laugh in his head. Something about her felt different. What he didn't know was that Zara, too, was staring at that little piece of paper, wondering why it made her heart beat faster. For 2 days after that rainy meeting, Arham couldn't stop thinking about Zara. Her laughter, her words about the rain, it all echoed in his head like a favorite song that refuses to fade. Every time his phone buzzed, he hoped it was her. And then one evening, it happened. A message. "Zara, I finally started reading that poetry book. Guess it reminded me to." Arham smiled instantly, typing back, "Arham, someone with an awful sense of humor and a love for rain." She sent a laughing emoji. That was the beginning. At first, their chats were simple, favorite books, songs, and how the weather seemed to behave differently whenever one of them was in a bad mood. But soon, messages turned into long late-night conversations. Sometimes, they'd talk about the meaning of love, sometimes about loneliness, and sometimes about absolutely nothing, yet it always felt like everything. Zara told him she had moved to the city just a year ago after losing her father. Arham didn't know what to say, so he simply listened. Sometimes silence is the kindest reply. He told her about his job, his dreams, and how his life had become a loop of ordinary days until she appeared. She replied, "Maybe I was sent to make your ordinary a little special." Her words made his heart race in ways he hadn't felt in years. Days turned into weeks. The bookstore became their meeting spot. Every Friday at 6 p.m., they'd sit near the window, watching the streetlights blur into golden streaks as the world moved outside and time slowed for them one evening. Zara brought a sketchbook. "I've been drawing lately," she said shyly. "It helps me clear my mind." Arham leaned closer. Her drawings were gentle, raindrops, hands almost touching, a silhouette standing alone in the storm. He asked softly, "Why always rain in your drawings?" "Because rain connects people," she smiled. "Like it connected us." That line had hit him deep. They walked out of the bookstore that night, side by side. The city was glowing under streetlights, and though it wasn't raining, the same feeling hung in the air, that quiet, romantic calm. When they reached her street, Zara hesitated. "It's strange, isn't it?" she said. "How someone who was a stranger weeks ago can start to matter this much." Arham smiled, trying to hide the emotion in his voice. "Yeah, strange and beautiful." She smiled back. "Good night, Arham." "Good night, Zara." That night, neither of them slept easily. She replayed his smile in her mind, and he scrolled up through all their messages again, rereading each one like a memory in motion. The next week, Arham bought her favorite poetry book and wrote something inside the first page before wrapping it. When she opened it during their next meeting, she read aloud. "Maybe love doesn't begin with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with raindrops and coffee." Zara's eyes softened. "You wrote this?" He nodded shyly. She looked at him, quiet for a few seconds, and said softly, "You write feelings better than words." For the first time, he felt something click inside him, a certainty. This wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something real. Later that evening, as he walked her home, Zara suddenly stopped. "Arham," she said quietly, "do you ever think some people are meant to meet no matter what?" He looked at her, smiling faintly. "I think some people are written into our story long before we even start reading it." Zara's lips curved into a small, shy smile. The wind brushed past them, carrying the faint smell of jasmine. And though no one said the word love out loud, both knew it was already there, quietly blooming between their hearts. When they parted, Zara texted later that night. "Zara, if this is what destiny feels like, I don't want it to end." Arham stared at the message for a long time, smiling. He typed back slowly, "Arham, then let's not let it end." It had been nearly 2 months since that rainy evening when they first met, and yet every memory of Zara felt as fresh as the morning breeze. For Arham, each day began with her message, a simple "Good morning, son," that somehow made everything feel right. They weren't officially together. No confessions had been made. But their bond didn't need words. It was in the pauses, the glances, the unspoken warmth that lingered between them. One Thursday night, Zara texted, "Zara, can we meet tomorrow? I have something to show you." Arham smiled. Their Friday meetings had become a rhythm, his heartbeat too. The next evening, she was waiting for him outside the same bookstore, wearing a soft beige sweater, her hair loosely tied, and a calm smile that could melt away any tiredness from the world. "Follow me," she said. He raised an eyebrow, teasing. "No, hi. No coffee. Straight to commands?" "Just trust me, Arham," she laughed. "You'll see." They walked for 15 minutes through narrow streets until they reached an old rooftop cafe, almost hidden between buildings. The view was stunning. The whole city glowed beneath them like a sea of stars. "I found this place last week," Zara said, setting down her bag. "It feels quiet, peaceful. I thought you'd like it." "I do," Arham said softly. "It's beautiful like you." She blushed lightly, pretending not to hear that. "Seat. I got us tea." They sat side by side, their cups steaming in the cool air. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was comforting, the kind of silence that feels like home. Zara looked at him and said, "You know, I used to think I was better off alone. But now, I'm not so sure." Arham tilted his head slightly. "What changed your mind?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe someone reminded me that life doesn't have to be lonely to be peaceful." He looked into her eyes, and in that one moment, everything made sense. He didn't just like her presence, he needed it. The cafe's faint music faded behind the rhythm of their breaths. Arham finally said, his voice trembling slightly, "Zara, I don't know how to say this, but you've become my favorite part of every day." Her lips parted slightly, eyes soft. "Arham," he continued, "I didn't plan this. You just walked into my life, and suddenly, everything started making sense again. I think I'm falling for you." Zara didn't speak for a second. The city lights flickered below them, as if the whole world paused to hear her answer. Then she smiled, that soft, trembling smile he had fallen for, and whispered, "You think too late, Arham. I fell first." His heart skipped a beat. He didn't even realize when he reached out and held her hand. Her fingers tightened around his, fitting perfectly, like two halves of the same story. They didn't need more words that night. Just the touch, the closeness, the quiet acknowledgement that something real had bloomed between them. The next few weeks passed in a blur of laughter, long drives, and late-night talks that stretched till dawn. They visited small cafes, watched old movies, and sometimes just sat in silence, finding peace in each other's presence. One evening, while walking along the seashore, Zara suddenly stopped and looked out at the waves. "You ever get scared of happiness?" she asked. Arham looked confused. "Why would anyone be scared of that?" "Because sometimes," she said quietly, "when things feel too perfect, I start fearing how easily it could all disappear." He gently turned her toward him. "Zara, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'll spend every moment making sure you never have to fear losing happiness again." Her eyes shimmered with emotion, and before she could reply, he pulled her into a hug. The sound of the waves faded away. It was just the two of them, hearts beating in sync under the vast night sky. After that, every small thing became precious. Her laughter, her silence, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. For the first time in his life, Arham wasn't afraid of tomorrow, because his today was already perfect. A month had passed since Arham and Zara confessed their love. Everything between them felt magical. Morning texts, surprise calls, random visits, and quiet evenings spent laughing over nothing. But love, no matter how pure, is never without trials. It began when Zara received a job offer, one she had dreamed of for years. A famous art magazine in Lahore had seen her sketches online and wanted her as their feature artist. When she told Arham about it, she looked both thrilled and hesitant. He smiled, even though something inside him ached. "That's amazing, Zara. You deserve it." She bit her lip. "It's in Lahore, Arham, for at least 6 months." The words hung heavy between them. 6 months? To him, it felt like forever. He forced a smile. "Then I guess Lahore just got luckier." She stared at him, trying to read his face. "You're okay with this?" He nodded, hiding the storm within. "Of course. I'd never stop you from chasing your dreams." But when she looked away, his heart whispered a truth he didn't want to admit. He was terrified of losing her. The next week, Zara left. The last time they met before her flight, they sat quietly in the same bookstore where it all began. She said softly, "We'll make it through this, right?" Arham held her hand, smiling faintly. "We've already made it through loneliness once. We could survive distance too." She kissed his cheek gently and whispered, "Promise me you'll keep smiling like this." He didn't reply. He just hugged her tighter, afraid his voice would break. The first few weeks apart were filled with video calls and endless texts. They'd fall asleep talking, laughing over small things, pretending the distance didn't matter. But slowly, reality crept in. Arham got busier with work, and Zara's new job demanded her full attention. Missed calls turned into late replies, and late replies into short messages. One evening, after waiting for a message all day, Arham finally texted. "Arham, are you okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday." It took 2 hours before she replied. "Zara, sorry, busy day at work. Talk later." That "talk later" hit harder than he expected. For the first time, he felt the silence between their words. Days passed. Conversations became shorter. She sounded tired, distracted. One night, during a call, Arham asked softly, "Zara, are we okay?" There was a long pause before she said, "Arham, I don't know. Everything feels so different lately." The words pierced him like ice. "Different how?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe distance changes people." He closed his eyes, holding back the pain. Maybe. Or maybe it just reminds them how much they miss what they love. They both stayed silent. The call ended with a simple good night, but that night, neither of them slept. Weeks later, Zara returned to Karachi for a short visit. Arham went to meet her at the cafe rooftop, the same place where they had first confessed their love. When she arrived, she looked different, more confident, more mature, but her eyes still held the same warmth. He smiled weakly. "You look happier." She nodded. "Work's been good. It's just, I didn't realize how much I missed home." "Home," he repeated quietly. "Is that what I am?" She looked at him, tears forming. "You always were, Arham." He stepped closer. "Then why does it feel like I'm losing you?" Zara's eyes glistened as she whispered, Because I'm scared. Scared that the person I left behind might not be waiting when I return. He took a deep breath, cupping her face gently. Zara, I was waiting even before you left. You're not someone I could ever stop waiting for. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What if I can't balance both my dreams and us? Arham smiled sadly. Then chase your dreams. I'll catch up. Because love isn't about holding someone back. It's about walking beside them, even from miles away. She hugged him tightly, crying into his shoulder. I don't want to lose this. He whispered, then don't. We'll figure it out. Together. The city lights glowed around them, the wind softly moving her hair, and for a moment, time froze, like it always did when they were close. That night, Zara texted him from home. Zara, I realized something tonight. Distance didn't change us. It showed me how strong we already were. Arham smiled at the message. Feeling peace returned to his heart. Arham, then maybe love doesn't need to be near to feel close. Zara, exactly. And when I come back for good, I'll tell you something I should have said long ago. He replied with a smile. Arham, I'll be waiting like always. 3 months had passed since Zara's short visit to Karachi. Arham had learned to live with her absence, but not without missing her every single day. Every message, every call, every small reminder, it all became his heartbeat. The distance no longer hurt like before. It had turned into quiet patience. He believed in her words, I'll come back for good. And then, one evening, his phone rang. It was her. Her voice sounded lighter, happier. Arham, she said, can you meet me tomorrow? I have a surprise. He smiled instantly. Tomorrow? Where? She laughed softly. Where it all started, the bookstore. The next evening, the sky was cloudy again, just like that first day. Arham reached early, heart racing faster with every tick of the clock. He stood by the window where they had first talked about rain and poetry. And then he saw her, walking through the crowd, wearing a white dress, her hair softly blowing in the wind. For a moment, time rewound. It felt like that same rainy evening had returned, bringing her back with it. Zara smiled as soon as she saw him. Still waiting under the rain. Huh? Arham chuckled, still showing up at the right moment. She stepped closer, holding something behind her back. Remember you told me once that some people are written into our story long before we meet them? He nodded, smiling faintly. Yeah, I remember. She pulled out a small wrap box and handed it to him. Then here's our story. Inside was a small hardcover book, handmade, beautifully bound, titled The Rain Between Us. He opened it and froze. It was their story, from the day they met, every detail written in her own handwriting. Their conversations, the bookstore, the rooftop cafe, even the distance. Each page held sketches, the raindrops, their hands, the skyline. He looked up, eyes glistening. Zara, this is our love story, she whispered. I wrote it because I never want to forget how it felt to find someone who made the world quiet and warm at the same time. He was speechless. His throat tightened, eyes filled with emotion. You came back. Zara smiled softly. For good this time. I finished my project early. I realized something while I was away. My dreams mean nothing if I can't share them with the person who made me believe in them. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding. Zara, I waited for this moment every single day. She stepped closer, then stopped waiting. Before he could say another word, she leaned forward and kissed him softly, a kiss that carried all the love, all the distance, and all the promises they had ever made. The world outside faded away. The city lights blurred, the sound of rain returned, and for the first time, they weren't afraid of time or distance anymore. When they pulled away, Zara laughed through her tears. You still owe me coffee from that rainy day. He smiled. Then let's have a lifetime of coffee, 1 cup at a time. She nodded, eyes glimmering. Deal. A few months later, Zara's art gallery held its first exhibition, and the highlight piece was a painting titled The Rain Between Us. It showed 2 silhouettes under one umbrella, surrounded by soft hues of blue and gold. As visitors admired her work, Arham stood quietly in the corner, smiling proudly. When someone asked Zara what inspired the painting, she replied with a warm glance toward him. Sometimes, love doesn't need to be found. It just needs to be recognized. After the event, they drove to their favorite rooftop cafe. The same stars above, the same breeze, but this time, no distance, no fear. Zara rested her head on Arham's shoulder. You know, I once told you I was scared of happiness. He smiled, brushing her hair gently. And now I realize happiness isn't scary. It's having someone who makes you feel safe enough to be happy. He looked in her eyes and whispered, Then promise me one thing. No more rain without me. She laughed softly. Promise. The city lights shimmered below them, and the gentle sound of rain began again, as if the sky was celebrating their reunion. This time, neither of them sought shelter. They stood under the rain, hands intertwined, hearts steady. No distance, no doubts, just love. And for both of them, it truly felt like coming home. Sparkles, don't forget to subscribe to our story channel for more amazing love stories like this.